Welcome, everybody. This is our first in our series of Meet the Experts. We're going to be going through an EUC solution based on a couple of different products. Looking forward to talking about this today, kind of trying to give everybody an overview of what we're um, trying to sort of show an end-to-end solution. In this particular webinar, we're going to basically be focusing on the product sets and kind of how they work together. And then in future episodes, we're going to talk about specific industries and verticals on how we can apply this same sort of collection of tools to do an end-to-end solution. Um, is everybody see my screen that's being shared at the moment, gentlemen?
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Um, I'm gonna go walk through these slides then. Let's start with meeting the panelists. We've got Phil Sellers on today, CTO at XenTegra. Welcome, Phil.
Hey, nice to be here, Mark.
Yeah, we've got Chris Feeney here as well. Chris is with IGEL and is probably the smartest IGEL guy I've ever met. So I'm stoked that he is here.
I appreciate that, but I would disagree. Thank you.
Yeah, from my perspective, let's just go there. Trent is from ControlUp. We're going to talk about monitoring. So we're going to just dive into this. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today and being part of this. Um, let's go ahead and roll through the slides a little bit. Oh, after this solution, we're going to have a HIMSS pass that we're going to be giving away. HIMSS is a healthcare conference, and we're going to be giving that full access pass at the end of this webinar. So we will email the winner after the webinar is complete.
And one other thing to add there, even if you're not the winner, well, you can also get a pass at 90% off for HIMSS. It's one of the programs that we've got here at XenTegra. So um, definitely follow up with Mark or someone on the XenTegra team, and we'd be glad to help you attend HIMSS this year.
Fantastic. Phil, I'm going to go ahead and give it over to you now, and I'll drive the slides for you. But we're basically going to talk about who is Integra to sort of start this off.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, Mark. If you haven't met us before, want to get to know us just a little bit and let you understand what makes us tick. Who is Integra? We're a value-added reseller that was born out of the need for customer enablement and true partnership. And what we mean by that is true partnership and a give and take. And so we want to collaborate with our customers and help them achieve the most with their IT solutions. We're a global company with a next door feel. We're on a mission to engage, listen, and deliver the appropriate enterprise technologies to clients of all sizes. We really believe that every organization, large or small, they need access to enterprise technology, especially considering some of the risks and factors that we're up against in the security space these days. All companies need protections. We're striving to be VAR 2.0, something different than other VARs out there. We want to break the mold by focusing on what truly matters, and that's your success as our client. You deserve more than a vendor, and so we're really striving to be a real partner. Now, how do we do that? We do that by building community. Every week, we hold fun and educational events across the nation. We also host multiple different podcasts with industry experts. And we do it by giving you access to industry conferences with our 90% off conference pass motion. This is important because we think an educated customer is the best kind of customer. So we want to get you to those industry events so that you can learn about the technology you're buying and get the most value from it. We also do it through complimentary assessments. We call them micro assessments. They're complimentary 4-hour assessments on all of our core technologies, and it helps you gain the most out of the investments that you've already made. We also do this by providing client choice. We're a one-stop shop. We've got you covered whether you're looking for consulting, hosted, managed, support services, simply reselling the hardware so you can achieve it yourself. as well as near and offshoring. We can help you in all those different ways. And with Mark and XenTegra One on this particular webinar, we're keying all of that expertise up for our small and medium business customers. XenTegra One is there to do these services with a focus on the SMB space. It's kind of weird, but here's a quote from myself. I like to think of us as Ace Hardware. Ace is the place for helpful hardware folks. That's their motto. Well, our motto is to try and bring that same mentality to IT. We're a little more curated and hopefully a little more knowledgeable than going in the typical big box store. And so we're trying to bring that additional knowledge to our customers. We specialize in your success. Like I said, XenTegra One here on the far right, led by Mark Vincent, is small and medium business focused. This is a fantastic group of individuals, and they understand the SMB space and how to make it completely work for the clients that we're working with. We've also got other verticals from managed services, modern applications, security and networking, modern data center, and modern workspace. All of these are set up so that we are able to help you with full solutions in each of these locations. So we're able to help you succeed end to end. In addition, a lot of managed services, and we like to think of this a little differently. We like to think of it as co-managed. We don't want to necessarily completely take over, but we want to work alongside existing IT, and we want to work together for the success of the client. Our chief architect on the managed services side at XenTegra says, would you rather build a plane or have a pilot that's flown it 1,000 times? That's what managed services can bring to you. And XenTegra One's managed services are fantastic and help SMB clients really achieve their goals. Our blueprint's simple. We want to bring the best in breed of our vendor partners, put them together. And what we're talking about today is a formula to put multiple different products together as a cohesive solution. That's our superpower. And so we want to bring that kind of knowledge to you and help you so that you get workspaces that run with fewer clicks, less latency, less lag, better security, and more flexibility at the end of the day. At the same time, we also want to do a little good. And so we have something called XenTegra Cares. That's where we're empowering nonprofits to do more good and also giving back in the communities where we hold events. We're known for working well with others. This is kind of our NASCAR slide with all of the different technology partners that we work with. And you're going to hear today from a group of those that work well together. Our awards speak for themselves. We've been recognized in a lot of different ways over the last couple decades. And so we're proud of these awards and being able to bring that expertise to our clients. That's the XenTegra difference. Mark, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. Let me make sure I've got the slides in the proper order here. Let me see here. I'm sorry, I see something different on my screen, so I'm trying to catch
Yep.
up.
Reshare, and I think we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, 1 second. Thank you. Okay, there we are. Can everybody see my screen okay? Okay, just a quick discussion real fast. The next series in this series will be about healthcare. So that's going to be on February 4th. We're going to specifically talk about how we can implement a solution using these same tools in a healthcare scenario. So we're going to be talking about what a small medical office has to deal with day to day and how these solution could benefit them for the day to day. So that'll be on February 4th. Let's talk about the solution stack. So this is sort of what we're going to be presenting on this webinar and in future ones. Sort of this group of products that work well together that can deliver an end-to-end solution. So from the very top up, we talk about DEX, which is what ControlUp will play. This is going to help deliver a really high quality of service. And try and feel free to jump in if I'm not saying this wrong. But we're trying to improve the overall quality of that connection coming through and making sure that no matter where you're at, you're gonna have a really high quality connection, and we'll be able to test that. Then we'll go into the thin client stuff, which is basically taking um, either purpose-built machines or old machines and converting them into thin clients, and then be able to control their access to the solution. Um, the solution itself, we're talking about delivering via Parallels. So Parallels is a fantastic solution for delivering both applications and full desktops to people on a variety of different platforms using a variety of different ways to actually deliver from. And I'll go into a little bit of that today. And then the bottom of this stack and sort of the thing that is controlling all of the actual data and systems is Nutanix. So Nutanix is a phenomenal system for the hypervisor and hosting your applications. So that's kind of the overview of what we're talking about. I want to start with Parallels since I'm kind of the Parallels guy around here. Parallels is a system that or a company that's been around for a long time. A lot of people think of them as Windows on a Mac. That's how I originally found out about them. You know, if you're running Windows on a Mac, you probably have Parallels installed. What I didn't know up until a few years ago is that they had a whole suite of other products. RAS in particular is what we're going to be talking about today, the remote application server. Think of this as a similar solution to something like Citrix. You can deliver applications and desktops, and you can do it in a relatively easy way to set up. Um, that the reason why you would want to use Parallels RAS, it's easy to deploy. It's extremely simple, more so than any other product I've ever used in the space, to be perfectly honest. The integration is great. It's very flexible. It'll work with just about any infrastructure. Today, we're going to be talking about using it under Nutanix, but I've easily set this system up inside of VMware. I've set it up in Hyper-V. I've done it in Azure, and I just did my first one of scale at AWS. So it can pretty much run anywhere, and it runs very well in all of these platforms. The cost optimization, the total cost of ownership is extremely low. Some of their licensing is extremely beneficial in the fact that we can do like a SPA program for customers where we're only basically selling them um, the concurrent usage of a product. So a lot of other competitors will make you buy a seat for every employee. In this particular case with Parallels, they do not. They will allow you to basically just pay for the people that are concurrently on at the same time. So it's a huge cost savings. Um, the UX, the actual delivery agent of this can run anywhere. It can run on an HTML5 browser. It can run really well in IGEL, which we're going to show today. It also runs on a Mac, Windows machines, and iOS and Android devices. And um, I'll be honest, I've used the Mac client and the specifically the iPad client a million times. It just works. Works really good. And then their focus is on security. So that not only is it a simple product, but it's very locked down and it's very has a lot of access control placed on the system so that you can not only deliver applications, but you can feel comfortable securely doing them. Um, just to give you an idea of what the architecture looks like in Parallels. To the far left, you've got everything that's user access. So these are all the different kinds of things that you can use to connect to the system. So we kind of like briefly talked about this a second ago. You've got a HTML5 browser. You've got clients for all major operating systems. You also have mobile clients and even thin clients like IGEL that you can connect in to access the center layer, which is sort of the meat and potatoes of the core system. It's basically it gives you a user portal that people can log into. They can see their desktops and applications they've been shared. That system is set up securely, so everything runs over 443. Um, it's load balanced. It includes load balancers, which is unheard of in this world. They give you the load balancers for free that you can use, so you don't have to buy an additional product for load balancing. It supports single and multi-tenancy. So for most small business, single tenancy is fine, just being able to run it as your organization. But as your organization gets larger, or you might have subsidiaries, you might want to split that data up. You can still manage all of it from one interface, which is awesome. It's got cloud connectors in it for AVD and Amazon. So if you want to run workloads or run some of your workloads over there as a hybrid mix, it supports that natively and it does it extremely well. I've been running AVD with it for quite a while now. It's fantastic. Um, does SAML enrollment services for SSO. So if you're already a Microsoft shop and you want to continue to use Microsoft as your primary source of truth for everything, supports it natively, works real easily. It's got great auditing and reporting. So if you need to be able to kind of see or know where your users are logging in and what they're doing, it has all that built in as well. And it's got a great management portal. Um, the kinds of things that you can do as far as delivery, it's the slide all the way to the right. Um, you can do RDSH hosts, so multi-session hosts. It works great. Remote PCs, you can install an agent on a remote computer. I've got customers that are high-end CAD CAM customers that don't want to be able to work from home, but their home PC doesn't match the quality of what they have on site. It allows them to remotely, get into a heavy-duty graphics workstation remotely and be able to use it. It's fantastic for that. Does traditional VDI, so we'll be touching on a little bit of that today, and then hybrid VDI where you could do it with like AVD in Azure, which we do quite often with the product. That's kind of the overview of Parallels. I'm going to hand it off to Phil to talk about Nutanix, the underlying layer.
Thanks, Mark. For on-prem workloads, Nutanix has been our go-to for, I would say, the last 6, 7 years at XenTegra. And that's been a clear choice for us because we think it's absolutely the best infrastructure for running VDI workloads. It was the first major workload that Nutanix kind of arrived capable of running well. And today, Nutanix has turned into way more than just the HCI company. For anybody listening that's not familiar with HCI, hyperconverged infrastructure is the idea that you take local disks in a server and use software to turn them into a SAN. And that allows you to run shared storage across commodity servers and then host virtual machines on top of it. Today, Nutanix has not only their hyperconverged storage, but they also have their own hypervisor. And we know that many of our customers are looking for alternatives to VMware by Broadcom due to cost increases and changes in packaging. Nutanix is a compelling alternative. And so we paired it in today's blueprint and architecture because it's great for the VDI workloads. So some of the other benefits here, freedom of choice. We talk a lot about freedom of choice with Nutanix. You get choice of where you want to run it, on-prem, in the cloud. You can run it in AWS or in C2 or with a service provider like XenTegra One. You get freedom of choice of which OEM vendors you want to work with. So if you're a Dell shop, an HPE, Lenovo, Cisco, you can choose which type of server hardware you want to run Nutanix on top of. So there's choice in multiple different layers and multiple different ways that Nutanix buys you some flexibility. It's one unified platform. That's the next great thing about it. It's the same no matter where you work it. It is the same software in every location, which gives you the common story, common administrative user interfaces, and it is once learned, apply it anywhere. If you remember back in the Java days where you were supposed to be able to write an application once and then run it anywhere, well, Nutanix is that for infrastructure. You run this software on any type of server, you can turn it into a cluster and be able to power your data center. Another huge, huge point with Nutanix has been simplicity. They've taken really complicated things and made it very simple. There's a lot of processes from day one startup, patching, upgrades, day two activities like upgrading virtual machines or changing resources. All of those things have been easily laid out so that it's intuitive and easy to understand. And so you don't need a lot of retraining or refactoring of your applications. It's an easy migration and move from VMware onto Nutanix. And when we talk about simplicity, we also talk about how Parallels integrates with Nutanix. It's all done easily. You can control it and manage all of the different VDI elements from the Parallels user interface directly against the Nutanix infrastructure. And lastly, customer delight. Their support is fantastic. And one way to measure how good their support is something known as a Net Promoter Score or an NPS score. This is a scale from negative 100 to positive 100. And to get a 90 plus for 8 years in a row is almost impossible to do. And that's a testament to the way that they approach support. Not only are they supporting their hardware, but the things that interact with it. Their support is always going to be a level 2 or level 3 engineer when you call in and open a case. And so, for those reasons, we always recommend and lead with Nutanix for on-prem infrastructure with VDI. Mark, if you'll go to the next slide. They're also a platform company, so there's a lot more here than just hyperconverged. I said that a little bit earlier. When we talk about the traditional, what was Nutanix known for? They were known for creating hyperconverged infrastructure. Well, where is that on this big map? It is the lower left cloud infrastructure bubble. And that's where we've got disaster recovery, virtual networking, their AHV hypervisor, along with scale out storage and data and network security. That's the traditional thing Nutanix is known for. That's in the boxes, but there's a lot more value that can be had. In particular, when we're talking about VDI use cases, just above cloud infrastructure, you'll see something called unified storage services. Well, when you're doing VDI, you need somewhere for the user profiles to also live. Nutanix Unified Storage allows you to do file servers on the same infrastructure as all of your virtual machines. And so you manage it the same way, all from the same user interface, simplifying the overall operations. So in one solution, you're going to be able to hit all the needs for an EUC deployment. But I saved the best for last. Why is Nutanix the best infrastructure for VDI? Well, it's a feature in the software called data locality. And what this means is that on every server, whatever's needed to run that local operating system, it's going to be copied locally to the server. So that means you're going to be running just as fast as native NVMe storage can run because all of the bits are there local to the system. So it's not having to go out to a remote SAN. It's not having to go out to remote disks. It's not having to talk between 10 servers in a cluster. Everything to run that Windows instance, it's going to be running right here on the same server. Data locality is the main reason customers choose Nutanix as their VDI infrastructure because it just makes things fly. And that's the value prop that we see when we're talking to new customers about Nutanix for their VDI platform. Mark, I'm going to turn it back over to you. As I said, there's a lot of value here in the platform. We can always go into more, and we're certainly here to help. We've got great Nutanix experts here on the team.
Yeah, fantastic ones. Phil being the tip of the spear on that. Um, Chris, I'd like to throw it over to you, and maybe we can talk about IGEL and how, in this solution, people would actually be accessing the data, right? How do they get to it? Um, Maybe we can have you take control of the screen and maybe walk us through IGEL and how that would work in a scenario like this.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I've actually got a couple things I'd like to share. So if you don't mind, I'll share my screen here and
Absolutely.
then take us through that journey. And just let me know when you can see that, please.
Yeah, looks good.
Great. So as you heard earlier, it really is about building the ultimate solution to provide the best user experience as possible. As soon as I'm finished here, you're going to hear about a fantastic product called ControlUp, which gives you visibility into the digital user experience employee experience. So you can see end to end what's happening off from the endpoint all the way into that stack where Nutanix is providing the functional capabilities via parallels, for example. But a little bit about IGEL first and foremost. We'll just kind of talk about. So we talk about delivering what we refer to as the adaptive secure desktop with IGEL. But before we go there, just a little bit about what our focus is on. This is kind of our main thing. We are laser focused on delivering a secure endpoint operating system, primarily focused on x86 and 64-bit platforms. So there's gazillions of those out in the world, brand new ones that come to market, as well as very old ones that might be 10, 15 years old. But similar to Nutanix, our focus is very much starting with security, and then bringing the offering of that endpoint OS, but a platform. So to sum it up quickly, it's basically an operating system with a management tool that just works. I've just been doing this for 25 years. We are currently focused on what's happening now, but we are definitely planning for and working towards what's the next in this space. And there's a lot going on. We just had a conference in Frankfurt, Germany, and previously earlier this year in Miami. We've got another one coming up where we bring our partners together, we bring our customers, and we kind of talk through, hey, what's happening in the world of end user computing? Well, one of the bigger challenge is that IGEL has really kind of been talking quite a bit about is that for the last 30 years, what's risen as we become more and more interconnected with the internet. I mean, just in my career alone, I'm now approaching 30 years in here, which give me some age. Don't guess what my age is. But the point is, in that time, I've literally seen my first job where all we had from an internet perspective was an ISD inline, a one machine that you go into a closet, it felt like at least, and that was it. It's like going into a phone booth to make a call back in the day. And before I left to come to Raleigh, where I live today, we had all of our offices around the country interconnected with a LAN and a WAN. And internet was still not great, maybe a T1 or fractional T1, but in that, in the last 25 years, look at where we have. We have satellite internet now that's unbelievably fast. And it just makes it, but what's happened is interconnectedness has also brought to rise that endpoints are extremely vulnerable, especially if those endpoints are running an operating system that were not designed with security from the get-go. IGEL was, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is. But what's happened is you begin to have to layer one solution after another to try to protect Windows. And even then you have scenarios where a protected, trusted vendor may push an update out like we saw last year. And all of a sudden those machines end up not usable and you have to physically touch them. But all to try to protect the bad actors that are out there. IGEL can safely say that we've never been compromised when it comes to these cyber attacks, and that is a genuine result of how we were built from the ground up to be run as a read-only operating system in an untrusted environment like the internet, for example. But these are some quotes from customers that have run into various situations, whether it's an active cyber attack or what happened last year with CrowdStrike. IGEL devices are very difficult to compromise at all. And so a lot of that is because of our architecture. As I mentioned, we call it our preventative security architecture. It's fundamentally why for many years we had a marketing event we called IGEL Disrupt, or Disrupt EUC was our tagline, because we're disrupting the status quo. What's our biggest competitor? The status quo. We've always had Windows on the endpoints. Why would we do anything different? And then you run into the next version that you have to upgrade to. In fact, IGEL's approach to that model and design was, why even start with a vulnerable OS? Just run what you need and nothing more. So ports and everything that you would expect, often that you have to protect from a Windows perspective, those just don't even exist. And then building from that is where you can then begin from a design perspective, protect and ultimately deliver to your customers a secure experience, which we'll talk about with respect to parallels. And then controlling and monitoring that, what's actually happening. So when that phone call comes in from the user, hey, I'm experiencing some slowness. Well, if you have a tool like ControlUp, you can say that, it's actually the endpoint's fine. Your wireless network is something's up with that, or there's something going on in the data center right now. Let's see if we can move your machine to another machine, whatever. At least you have that visibility. Without it, you're, picking in the wind, trying to figure out what the problem actually is. So fundamentally what we do, we are a secure read-only Linux-based OS. Don't be afraid of Linux. Linux runs on a lot of stuff that you probably don't even realize, like your TV. And we do replace Windows at the endpoint. That's fundamentally what's out there. But we can also put ourselves on other thin client products that have been out there that are also x86 64-bit. We have a modern management tool, which I'll show you here in a minute. We deliver a modern desktop operating system, which you can completely customize. You can make it look and feel like a Windows machine if that's what your end users want to expect. And a modern app delivery model, which we'll talk through. But fundamentally, you can rest assured that you will have a lockdown, secure operating system that prevents and mitigates those attacks that are coming in, even those 0 days. IGEL security team is very much laser focused on keeping abreast of what's happening out there. But because our architecture is designed so you can't just go off and install applications like you would normally in another operating system, we don't allow for that because of the model we have. So moving right along, what also has shifted in IGEL's story over the years is that we used to develop and maintain our own brand of thin client hardware. We no longer do that. It's very similar to the Nutanix story. We're a software company. That is what we focus on, the operating system and the management tool to control that in the application integrations. So fundamentally, how does it get deployed? Well, you can take your existing devices, like I've got this old laptop. I've got a all-in-one sitting over there from LG that was running Windows. I could put IGEL on it. I've got this other laptop where I've got my IGEL UD Pocket, this little USB stick. I can boot either USB-C or A. It's a really handy product, especially if the hard drive goes kaput, which may happen. And then, of course, we have hardware partners such as Lenovo, HP, LG, and several others. If you want to see all the devices that are out there, go to igel.com/ready and take a peek at what's out there. But the main thing, we call this the Simply IGEL and the 3 benefits. That security model, number one, if you don't have a secure foundation, everything else really doesn't matter because it's going to get compromised, and that's what we focus on is making sure that device does not get compromised and is completely usable. And the great thing is, if something happens, you just reboot the machine and you're back to where you were before. It's really simple. On the cost savings, very similar to what's been shared earlier, because of either repurposing devices or removing software that you would normally use to protect your Windows devices, for example, you can see significant savings, and we have a whole ROI calculator that you can punch your own numbers in, and we'll give you access to that with our partner like XenTegra to walk you through that and come up with your own, cost savings tool. And then, of course, the manageability. If it's difficult to manage, that's not going to be accepted by the, in our case, the partners that are trying to deliver it, but certainly the customers trying to use it. So at the end of the day, what it looks like is this. IGEL in this 3-ring circus, we bring together your strategy around your endpoint hardware vendors, your mechanisms, what are you connecting to, your security partners, whether it's identity access management or zero trust focused partners. And then we have an orchestration capability, right? The operating system, the management system, the portal, and then the delivery of those applications, those modern workspaces, as was mentioned earlier. And at the end of the day, you deliver a desktop to the user that they can work with. And these are all the different types of options that are available, from browsers to VDI clients. We'll talk about parallels today, progressive web apps, local apps, like if you want to run the Zoom app, for example, locally, like we're doing today. We even launched what we call our IGEL Managed Hypervisor, where I can run a older version on top of IGEL of Windows, for example, here. There's some use cases around that. But for today, we're going to talk about parallels. So the UMS is essentially going to provide, hey, here's what's going to be applied to that device, and here's what the user is going to see at the end of the day. So speaking of which, I'm going to drag this right over here so you can see my virtual machine. So here is my IGEL device, already pre-configured. here is the UMS management system. So if you are looking at that, let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Fantastic. So here's my device that is literally being managed right here. So right behind this screen, here's the start menu. Here is the configuration. It's sitting in this directory. And so you can see here's the path and it sits right in there, and you can see what applications have been installed on the device, what profiles are controlling the configuration of that device. Are there any custom objects like custom wallpaper, which you can see? Are there any files that have been sent down to the device, such as certificates that I might need to use, or wallpapers, or pictures, or images, or what have you, icons for various things? All of this is customizable. And then, of course, the UMS is integrated with our app portal. So this is where we have in the cloud these applications that we update from time to time. You can kind of see here's the base system of the IGEL OS. We've got browser-based applications from progressive web apps to browsers themselves and various things. All of that is integrated, and I can import directly those apps into the UMS and then go through the setup and configuration process. So here's the config. So for example, if I want to take a look at setting up some BIOS tools, or here's the Parallels RAS, which you can see here in just a second. It's really just a matter of creating that profile, picking the applications you want to configure, and then going through and setting up the connection process here. So I'll move that out of the way for just a moment. And you apply it, and the device gets it, and then the user just clicks on it here, makes a connection, and goes through the process of logging in and accessing their resources, which Mark will show you here in just a second. And then, of course, behind the scenes, what you don't see is the fact that we've got the ControlUp remote DX agent running. It's, essentially invisible behind the scenes, but it's configured and reporting into the console. So then you can pull up the ControlUp display and see what's going on out there, which I know Trenton is going to walk us through there in a second. So, but again, at the end of the day, this device is got only what you need and nothing more. I've got some additional icons here that aren't necessarily clogging up the desktop. I can hide these if I need to, and I can expose them when I want to. There's so much configuration and capabilities you have that are far and above why people look at this and say, this is amazing. And try doing a lot of those same things with Windows and how quickly you can do it. I could make a change here in just 5 seconds. The device will pick that up. So it's very simple and easy to use. So at this point, I'm going to pass the baton over, I believe, to Mr. Trenton, I think, to show us a little bit more about the ControlUp solution.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. I'm assuming you guys can see my screen now.
Yeah, looks great.
Fantastic. All right. So thank you for having me. Yes, I'm Trenton with ControlUp. Thank you, Chris and XenTegra, for having us at this webinar. So first thing I want to talk about when we talk about ControlUp and all these wonderful technologies and partners and coming together is I want to define a little bit about what ControlUp does. And in order to do that, we need to talk about DEX. As was kind of alluded to earlier, what is DEX? So DEX to us stands for the Digital Employee Experience. And what is the digital employee experience? So the digital employee experience is essentially the quality of your interaction with technology. So as an example, if you're provided a Windows laptop and you boot it up and it's slow to boot up, and it takes you a while to start your application and connect in and do whatever work you need to do, that can be a poor DEX experience. If you happen to have an IGEL device and you boot it up and it boots up in a few seconds and connects you to the resources that you need near immediately, then that could be a good DEX experience. So essentially, there's a lot of pieces that go into providing a DEX experience, and ControlUp is one of the companies that are well positioned to be able to monitor all of these particular resources and partners and technologies and provide you the capability of actually measuring what your employees and your users experience in your organization. But I did mention it can measure things like CPU and disk and memory. One of the challenges is that DEX isn't just measuring simple metrics like that. It's trying to aggregate everything together in order to provide you a usable score to understand what your employees are actually experiencing when they're using these technologies. So it's more than just measuring CPU. If you have a vendor who says they're a DEX vendor and all they offer is a device score, that isn't sufficient. Having low CPU isn't indicative of a good performance. Having low memory usage isn't indicative of a good performance. Generally, we tend to think that way, but it's not necessarily true. We all know if you use Chrome or if you use Edge or if you use any of these Chromium-based browsers, they suck up memory like crazy. But just because they're using a lot of RAM doesn't mean that you're getting a poor experience. So it's really important to be able to measure things like user experience metrics, how quickly the interface changes, how quickly it updates, things like that, in addition to CPU and memory, in order to evaluate whether someone's having a good experience or not. And then on top of that, it's more than just monitoring VDI. Knowing what the performance is in a remote session is really important. Because if you're using an IGEL device that's really lightweight, it's a thin client OS, you're connecting in through parallels to a virtual desktop, the performance of that local device may not matter as much. The performance of the VDI matters more. And so one of the things that ControlUp has done is we've taken what's called contextual focus in our product, and we will actually identify when you're using these EUC technologies, and we'll actually pull the metrics from the remote device if they influence your experience more than the local device. And then as well as kind of alluding to, it's more than just the endpoint experience, right? If you have an IGEL device and you boot it up, but you've got memory that's failing or CPU that's overheating or something like that, so it's throttling you down, but you're connected into a VDI device and the performance of that endpoint is sufficient to provide a quality experience or a quality connection, then the endpoint experience doesn't necessarily matter as much, but it can. Your endpoint being your first gateway into a device or into a remote session can be very, very important to actually measure, but it's not the end-all be-all. So why does DEX matter? One of the things that we strive for when we're measuring the digital employee experience is we want to set some key performance indicators on what we can do to ensure a successful deployment. And we'll help you do that with ControlUp by monitoring and helping you manage all of these different technologies together in order to achieve these goals. So we want to see increased efficiency, we want to reduce the tool set if possible, and we want to reduce support tickets. So those are usually the big ones that impact IT, and they see value in our solution and all these products by providing those kind of efficiencies for an organization. From an employee perspective, what's really important is being able to do your job, right? You don't want to be interrupted with blue screens of death. You don't want to be interrupted by slowness. You don't want to be interrupted by delays or typing and then seeing no text appear and then suddenly appear. All of those things are jarring and they can reduce your satisfaction when you're using these technologies. And then for the business, the overall goal is to save time and money, make your people more productive. We can do faster onboarding by making them more efficient when they originally come on board, and then we can help increase retention. And that's mostly just based on employee satisfaction, right? If employees are happier, they tend to stay longer, and that helps with reducing things like brain drain or retraining or things like that as you turn over employees and stuff. Ideally, you don't want to do that, and we can help assist in that just by providing your business a good experience for what your employees and your IT staff are doing when they're using the technologies in your organization. So we have a success strategy that we deliver when you sign on with ControlUp. One of the things we can do is we can assess the current state of your environment. We can look at all the tools that you're using. We can see if there's a way that they can be consolidated to tools that are easier, or if we provide a solution there, then we're looking to always offer something that provides you meaningful value. One of the most important things is to align with business objectives. So setting up KPIs, setting up steps to make sure that these deployments of DEX in your environment are going to be successful. So even just things like reducing logon times, improving performance by reducing latency in your networks or your Wi-Fi, things of that nature, we can help identify those areas of concern, and then you can focus on them to resolve them, thus improving the environment of your business. one of the most important parts is involving cross-functional teams. So when we're talking about a VDI team and the desktop team and IT, and then actually the business teams themselves who are using these technologies, one of the key goals that we have for a successful DEX strategy is to make sure that they're all involved in this process. And so that way everyone can identify what they view as a success, and then we can identify how we can get there through the goals that you have for your organization. And then lastly, focusing on the complete end user experience and journey. One of the most important things in DEX is that middle letter, E, that employee experience. So digital employee experience is what DEX stands for. It's really important that we focus specifically on what the employee is experiencing when they're using technology. Are they able to start work quickly? Are they able to work efficiently? Do they experience lots of interruptions? All of those things are really negative to a DEX strategy. And so it's really important to have that employee point of view. And one of our approaches when we're measuring DEX is to really focus on what the employee experiences. And I'll show you kind of what that looks like in just a second. So what is a DEX platform from our perspective? So we believe that real-time monitoring management is one of the most important parts of DEX. And the reason why is if you can imagine driving your car and you've got your speedometer on there that's going up and down, and if you had to step on the accelerator and you're driving your car and you have to wait 15 minutes to see that you're at a certain speed, that would be a really hard experience to understand the cause and effect. You know, acceleration, the top speed, the effects that you feel when you're getting pushed into your seat or whether you're going slow or bumps and things on the road. Without that real-time feedback, it is really hard to gauge the experience of what someone is going through without real-time monitoring. So we can do real-time monitoring and management through there. We've got broad device support. As is already mentioned, we've worked with IGEL for years now, almost a decade, with integrating our solution into their product, and they've been wonderful to work with, and they have a great tool and device there, and we support IGEL OS along with a variety of other operating systems and devices as well. And then we support multiple operating systems. We support IGEL, Mac OS, Windows, just straight up Linux as well for monitoring those platforms and servers and stuff of that. We support multiple hypervisors. Nutanix obviously is a really strong and capable hypervisor product, and I prefer it in my own lab personally. And we fully support IGEL or IGEL OS and Nutanix and Parallel RAS and bringing all those together as well. Automated remediation, so detecting when something is a miss and then being able to automatically rectify it. So one of the key capabilities that we have in doing real-time monitoring is we can say, hey, when something breaches a threshold, we need to take some kind of action to resolve it. More recently, with cloud-based computing, if you're using Azure, these are all consumption-based products now, where the longer something is running, the more you pay for it. So now per second billing, which Azure does, it's really important to have per second monitoring. And with ControlUp, we monitor at a 3-second interval. So when the last user logs off at the end of the day, you don't want to wait 15 minutes in order for that machine to start getting shut down to save you money. You want to wait 3 seconds or as quickly as possible. So with ControlUp, we can actually execute those type of actions in that level of performance in order to do things like save you money or solve problems. If a session is stuck in FS Logics, for example, we can automatically detect that it's stuck, and we can find that stuck session, and we can force it off, or we can reboot the machine, or whatever needs to be done to resolve that issue immediately. And then, as I kind of spoke before, the human-centric DEX scoring, we really put the employee focus on measuring our DEX scoring and making sure that's as top tier as possible and as understanding as possible for what your users are experiencing when they're using these technologies. So how we do this? We do this through the ControlUp One platform. For the ultimate in cost savings in the EUC stack, for sure, Nutanix is one of the best hypervisors we've seen out there with amazing performance and management, with parallels exceptionally easy to stand up and get ready and get running with remote access to applications and desktops. And then IGEL, as is spoken before, the secure endpoint OS for now and next, a fantastic solution, a fantastic product, and I can't speak highly enough about it. So let's just take a quick look into what ControlUp offers in this space. So when we land on the ControlUp page, when you install ControlUp in your environment, this is what you land on when you're looking at your VDI infrastructure. So I'm going to switch to the Details tab here. And you can see at the top what we have is we have the topology bar. So this lays out all the relationship of the elements of your environment. So here we can see we've got Azure connected, we've got different on-premises hypervisors connected, we've got various machines connected, and then users connecting into all of those machines and so on and so forth. I'm going to focus on the technologies that we're talking about here. So I'm going to switch to the host view, and now we can see all of the different hypervisors we support. So again, whether that's Hyper-V, Azure Stack HCI, Azure Local, however you want to call it, VMware or /Broadcom, Citrix Hypervisor, et cetera, and Nutanix. So if I click on this machine now, we're going to see the topology bar change as I'm going to focus on the Nutanix hypervisor. And we're going to see it's going to show me all of the virtual machines on this hypervisor. So I've got 3 different machines running here, all with the parallel RAS agent on there. So that way parallel RAS client is able to connect into those machines. And so I'm going to focus on one here. I'm going to focus on our 2019 machine. And here you can see we're getting all these real-time performance metrics as well. So in this particular machine, I can see we've got 3 user sessions, 137 processes. I can see the disks that are connected to it. Underneath in the real-time grid view here, we can actually see the stats. And if you're watching these, you'll see that these are being updated every 6 seconds for the web-based monitoring. But the metrics are being monitored every 3 seconds for automation purposes. So here I can, if I scroll to the right, I can see a variety of different metrics that we offer for monitoring the virtual machines. If I click this down, you can see we offer a whole suite of different metrics. I think it's up to 2,000 in total across the different resources that we monitor. And then as well, as I said, we're not just a monitoring product, because it's nice to know how things are, but you want to be able to react to things. So one of the things we can do is we can right click on this and we can actually take some level of action. So I could actually reboot the machine, power it off, power it on, whatever needs to be done to help resolve that issue. I can refresh group policy. I can do a whole bunch of different actions. And these are all completely customizable as well. You can write your own actions in PowerShell, Batch, or VB script for Windows. We support different actions for Linux and IGEL OS with Bash and other scripting languages as well. Same with Mac OS, etc. So I'm going to click on the user sessions now. So I'm focused on this machine and I'm looking on the user sessions within. Here I can see I've got 3 RAS user sessions using Windows thin clients, using IGEL thin clients, and using, I don't know what the third one is, but we're using all these different technologies in order to connect into this device. So here we can see we've got a device with an IGEL 12 OS connecting in. The session for it looks the same. Sorry, give me 1 second. I just got told my mic changed. Switching back. Okay. You can see all these real-time metrics that are being updated live as the user is doing some level of activity. We measure logon duration, so we can actually help identify which technology in your environment might be slowing down logons, things of that nature. We can see latency and so on and so forth. And we do provide a complete picture of this. So this is just a quick snapshot of this, given the times that we have. But I'm going to just do a last little thing on what our DEX view is. So here we can actually see what our employee score is. This is how we measure DEX based on what I was describing before. So we track jarring events or disruption events, including app crashes and blue screens of death. If I go to details, we can actually see what contributes to a poor DEX score. So here we could see things like CPU load, weak Wi-Fi signal strength, things of that nature. If I go ahead and click on one of these users, it'll actually focus in on a timeline view so we can actually see what their DEX score was over time. If I click on the experience score, it actually slides it out and gives me an idea for why the ControlUp software decided that this was a poor experience. And in this particular example, we can see that this user consistently had poor Wi-Fi signal strength with an average of a 42% signal strength. So odds are he's getting dropped packets and things of that nature. That contributes to a poor digital experience. And then, as I said, we've got contextual awareness. You can see we do VDI DAS, SaaS applications, local applications. We track location, what networks you're on, and so on and so forth. So a lot of data we bring together to produce you a deck score. And that deck score is completely customizable. You can weigh different things so that way they're heavier or lighter if you find different things to be more important and things of that nature. So switching back to the slides now, I'm just going to switch over to the last slide that I have here. So how we do all this is we have our ControlUp One platform. So we have one single platform license that you're able to purchase from ControlUp, and this encompasses all these technologies you see here. So we can monitor everything. So if you're moving from VMware/Broadcom to Nutanix, we support both hypervisors. So you can actually see the performance deltas between one hypervisor versus another. And then we have the capability of measuring that. If you're moving from a Windows-based thin client into an IGEL-based thin client, we support both those as well. So same sort of thing. You can measure your migrations, you can monitor the performance, you can do remediation, and we've got full support of all of these technologies. And we can help you accelerate your journey into DEX with ControlUp and all of these wonderful partners and technologies that we support. So with that, I think I'll pass it back to you, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Trent. That was awesome. I can't imagine how in our world we didn't have all of these products together, right? There truly is an end-to-end solution. Um, the beauty of ControlUp in particular is that last mile. From someone who's owned and operated a data center and have to deal with end users' entire life, having the idea to say, "Hey, it's not us. It's your Wi-Fi at home. It's this. It's that," is the ultimate tool for being able to troubleshoot end user experience, and that's really what everybody is really shooting for, right? You want to have the best possible experience when you're connecting to these technologies, and that product is awesome just for that. I think at this point we're really looking for questions. If there's someone out there that wants to see has any questions for us. Um, I know we talked about doing a potentially showing maybe your environment if you would like to share. If anyone wants to see that, I really wasn't thinking for the first webinar that we would go into too much detail in that respect. Um, I think really we open up for Q&A if anybody has any. At this point, we're down to like 2 minutes anyway, so we've kind of really taken the time and got everything through. Um, does anyone in the panel or the participants have any questions? Now would be the time. If not, I think this was a good first outing. Thank you guys for everything and really appreciate your time. And certainly looking forward to kind of taking what we've talking about, these building blocks, and adding more to a specific use case and be able to show that a day in the life, right? And our next one next month will be revolving around healthcare and a small business, um, like a medical practice and how that would work. Um, so if it doesn't look like anybody's got any questions for us, I just want to thank everybody for coming out today and listening, and look forward to having the next one. XenTegra will be also emailing everyone on that attended today um, information about the next one and potentially if you won the raffle for the HIMSS passes. Um, and I think at that, I think we're going to call this one done. Thank you again, everyone, for attending, and looking forward to meeting again.
Thank you,
Great, thank
Trent.
you.
Thanks, Mark. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. All right, bye-bye.